and this is 30 Minutes of Hell podcast with the coach, the legend, Jimmy Dykes. I appreciate you for joining me. Love the background. I had to do it for you. 22 and 11 coming together.
Well, this is perfect start to the broadcast because obviously 22 is twice the number of 11. You are twice the player of me. That's how they do it. Like and like great players are like 33 and 44. I was 11.
I love it. I appreciate you. I know you're busy right now. Obviously, we're in the thick of things. You have a couple games to prepare for this weekend, but I do have to ask right off the bat.
Yeah.
Where does this podcast, if you had to give it a seat on Jimmy's jet, where do you think this podcast will have their seat?
You know, I've been watching you. I haven't told you, but I've been watching all your podcasts, all your guests you've had on. I've just been sitting here at home waiting patiently for the phone call to come. It's.
I'm gonna be back in the blue water. So I've been in the blue water seats.
You've been in the blue water, but then I got the invite. I bumped you up to business class, and then you break out the 22 jersey on me. You're in first class. You're right there beside Alabama on Jimmy's jet right now. Right there beside Alabama. Yeah, first of all, I've had a blast with you in the SEC Network studio.
Okay.
I haven't been in there the last couple of weeks, but we just have so much fun. I have so much respect for you, how you see the game, your passion for the game. Just we've had a blast together. I know Arkansas fans, hopefully they like us when we're in there together. At least I know they like you. So that helps me out a little bit.
Well, they call me the boot shiner. So you know what I mean? You're a lot more professional. But this is going on to all Hog fans who obviously near and dear to my heart. You know, I'm a Hog. I'm a Arkansan by choice, not by chance.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I want to start out and getting into some of your background, but your early TV focus, and then we'll get back to some of this, because there was a moment in time where you started doing basketball games, and some of them were my games, and you were young and in the business. And I'm just curious of your early TV focus, because there was a moment, I'm telling you, I couldn't sleep. I turned on the TV, must have been 1 a.m. Westminster Dog Show. Who's doing it but you? So It's like, what was your early TV focus? What you wanted to accomplish, your how you were going to get there, and your preparation for it?
Yeah, it's really an interesting story. I haven't been asked that very much over the last 25 years, but Pat, I was actually scouting in the NBA, and during one of those games I was at, I got seated, like we used to go to actually watch games in person as an NBA scout. I got seated by a guy that worked for ESPN. We just struck up a conversation, and he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing games on TV?" And I had no desire to do it. I was going to be, I'd gotten in the NBA, and I was going to work my way that way for my career. But we stayed in touch, and after a couple of phone calls, they said, just try a couple of games. So I did. I fell in love with it. And that's kind of how my career initially got started. I wasn't even looking to get into being a college basketball analyst, but because of my coaching background, my playing background with Eddie Sutton, being in the NBA, it did set me up to at least have an opportunity to try.
Right.
And then, as you know, you get the opportunity, you make the most of it. So after that first year of doing a few games with ESPN, I told them, I said, I love doing games, and I'll do any game you have, I'll do. I'm not a guy that's going to come in here and say, "Hey, I want the best games in the Big Eight or whatever." So not too long after that conversation, they said, "We think you have the personality to pull off some stuff for us. So would you be interested in doing the Great Outdoor Game?" I'm like, "I'm in." I didn't know what I said yes to. I just said, "I'm in." What does that mean? Well, it's all these games in the outdoors, and you're going to be our dog expert. I said, "Okay, send me a film of a show where these dogs are running through these obstacle courses, or they're broad jumping out into the lake. so I can kind of learn what the other analysts have said in the past. They said, there's never been another analyst in the past on this. You're it. So whatever you come up with, you're the expert. And it just kind of went like the 2-pog push, and different things that I came up with kind of got my creative juices flowing a little bit. And but that's how I started. You know, I've done college basketball.
Well, just to say, honestly, the interview that you orchestrated with that Golden Doodle back in '95 was just, I mean, that's ESPN legend. Okay, I don't know how you were able to get those answers out of that doodle.
It takes a lot of work, a lot of preparation, a lot of film study on that stuff. But it's interesting because I've done college basketball, the WNBA playoffs. I've done a game in the NBA. I've done the great outdoor games, the agility competitions, the Nathan's hot dog eating contest.
You did that?
I did that for like 5 years right there in New York City. Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the most memorable things I've done in TV.
That is awesome. Now, obviously, I'm blown away. I mean, you can tell, you know, I like to eat. I'm a fat kid. So that is, one of these days when we were able to sit next to each other, I could talk about that for about 5 hours.
Yeah. That's a whole 1-hour podcast.
But I just, and quickly, I want to add this. 2 things. Number one, for those listening, because you get questions, I actually get questions too about the business of how, not only how to get started, but also how to stay in it, and do whatever they ask. Ask, you'll do anything, go anywhere, anytime, anywhere. And it's a learn. You got to be a curious person by nature, I think. And you are. You love to learn. You love to talk about it. And if you don't know, you kind of love to learn about it. So I think that's the number one thing that's awesome about you that I've learned from you, watching you. And the second thing, I think you do an excellent job of taking the complex and making it simple. You know, small brain guys like me. I mean, you as a coach, you've had to do that, right?
Yes.
Over the course of your career, and making it simple and taking, trimming the fat, and then being able to deliver in it. And that's something that you do an excellent job at. And I learned from it just in regular conversations.
Well, I appreciate that. I think in simple terms, so therefore I speak in simple terms. The book that I wrote was in simple terms because I wrote every word. I'm not a guy that uses great, big, huge words, so it's easy to understand. The other
my
thing
brother just ordered that, by the way.
I'm sorry?
My brother just ordered the book, by the way.
Have you had one yet?
I didn't, but we were talking about it, and he watches you, and he sees the book, and he says, I got to get the book. I go, Rich, order it. And so he did.
Pat, it's coming your way. Everybody else has to order it off of CoachJimmyDykes.com. But I thought I already sent you one, man. I'm sorry about that. I want you to have one. But I would say the other thing for anyone that's thinking, I want to do this, or really anything they're thinking about getting into, as I look back on what I've tried to have consistently in my career, besides what you just said, I'll do anything you ask me to do. I think the other important thing is how you treat people, how you treat the camera guy, the guys that are setting up the table for you, the stats person beside you, the ushers when you walk in. I think that is so important, so important. I know it is, because it's a high stress. There's a lot of pressure in our job. You and I understand that probably more than other people do that never been in our spot. And it's easy to get our eyes only on us and forget the importance of people around us and how to treat people around us every day. So I'm still not great at it, but I know it's a real high priority with me, with the people that I work with. Am I treating them with kindness even when things aren't going my way?
That's right. Because it does it's sort of like that aura, you get back what you give out. And I think it's important in every situation.
And on Wednesday nights for you in the studio, I put a sign up, be nice to Pat, because the pressure, the irritation, the shake my head moments I have with you, I just come back to be kind, be gentle, be soft.
We're going to treat this guy with kid gloves now. Come on now. Come on. This is Pat Bradley with Field of 68 and the 30 Minutes of Hell podcast. We'll get back to the show in a minute, but first, let me tell you about our partners over at DraftKings Sportsbook. With March Madness beating down our door, DraftKings is the best way for you to get a little action in on the game. If you've not downloaded the DraftKings Sportsbook app yet, well, what are you waiting for? It's the safest, it's the most secure, and it's reliable and allows to safely deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. And this week, they're offering my listeners a pretty sweet deal. If you sign up now with the promo code FIELD68, you can turn $1 into $100 if one of the main event fighters in UFC 259 this weekend lands a single punch. That's it, one punch to turn $1 into $100. And don't worry, if MMA isn't your thing, DraftKings Sportsbook offers odds and promos on basketball, hockey, or whatever sport you are watching. But since they're basically giving away $100, you might as well sign up now, watch a little UFC, and remember to use promo code FIELD68. That's FIELD68. Must be 21 years or older. Offer available for a limited time only. Eligibility restrictions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I love the history of the Razorback program. And I know for those watching right now, we will talk about Muss, this year's team, and what he's brought. But what I love all is the success over the years and how each, these eras and teams, I would love to see the gap, bridge the gaps. And one thing I'm curious about, you played for the Hall of Famer Eddie Sutton, Coach Eddie Sutton. What was the sense of Razorback basketball before he got there? You were young, obviously. I'm sure you Fayetteville kid, so you followed the Hogs basketball. What was it like right before he got there, the sense of it? And then when he gets there and gets it rolling, was the players just like, what's going on here? We're a basketball school too?
I'm not sure the state of Arkansas even knew what was going on between football season and spring practice, in all honesty. Like, that's what dominated the state of Arkansas because of Razorback football and Coach Broyles and all the things he had done. And then when Eddie Sutton got hired, I remember initially you could walk into old Barnhill Arena with a sawdust around the floor. They used it as a multi-purpose facility, literally at tip-off, and pretty much set anywhere you want, Pat. That changed quickly.
Really?
That changed quickly. And when he started bringing in that Final Four team, those guys, Jimmy Counts, Marvin Delph, Ron Brewer, Sidney Moncrief, it exploded. That program just exploded. And it went from completely on the back burner to the most important thing in this state.
Wow.
It happened within a year or two. And Barnhill Arena became the most feared building in the Southwest Conference, if not all of college basketball.
Right.
And older fans like me that remember Barnhill, there's still never been anything like it. But we did a good job of trying to capture the enthusiasm and all that in Bud Walton Arena as a fan base. But there's nothing like Barnhill, Pat. And I'm telling you, when teams came rolling in there, you were in serious trouble because Coach Sutton could flat out coach. The building was hot. The crowd was right on top of you. It was roaring.
Yeah.
And it was a magic place to play. And I remember Hakeem Olajuwon and those guys rolling in there one night. Joe Klein got the fifth foul on Hakeem Olajuwon with about 2 minutes to go. It was the loudest building I've ever been in my entire life. When the foul was called, Olajuwon's out, we're up 3, they're ranked number 1, and they're getting ready to go down. And it was that loud a lot of times. That one set the bar.
What was the best team that you played on between 81 and 84, correct?
Yes, yeah. It would have to be, I believe we went to the Sweet 16 and we got knocked out by LSU in New Orleans. There's 32,000. Wow. Yeah, there's 32,000 people there, and 31,000 of them were LSU Tiger fans. I remember walking out of the tunnel beside Coach Sutton.
Yeah, I guess New Orleans.
Yeah. But it was, that was the Joe Klein, Alvin Robertson, Darrell Walker era. I mean, that team was loaded. That team was special.
Like? I mean, what? First of all, what
Well,
were Coach Sutton's practices like, and then in general with those guys?
well, I think everybody knows on the back of our practice jerseys were the 3 words: dedication, discipline, and defense. That never wavered. This never wavered. And practices were brutally tough. They were hard. They were always defensive minded. We always did the shell drill. We always did take a charge drill. The day before the Houston game and the day after the game, we were still doing all those things. It never wavered.
Wow.
One of the so to tell you what Coach Sutton was like, I think it was my sophomore, junior year. We played in Hawaii over Christmas and lost 2 out of 3 games there. The last game we got beat by Georgia Tech and Mark Price. They only dressed out 7 guys that day because of injuries, I think, but they beat us. So as soon as the game's over, we've now lost 2 out of 3. We drive straight to the airport in Honolulu. I think we wait for like 3 hours for a flight. We get on the flight in Honolulu, fly all night long, land in Dallas at 5:30 a.m. The 6:30 flight then connects us to Fayetteville. We weren't flying charter back then. We land in Fayetteville about 7:45 that morning, get off the bus, go straight to Barnhill, and practice 3 times that day. And no one said a word. No one complained. No one talked about how many out. No, we got beat. We deserve to get beat. And this is how we get better. And that's, to sum it all up, that's what practices were like under Eddie Sutton.
Is it
for me personally?
Yeah, for you.
Just trying to get the ball across half court against Alvin Robertson and Darrell Walker.
I mean, is that
I still have a scar right here of a fingernail from Darrell Walker where he scraped me down, took the ball away, blood, no foul call. That's how we play.
No one come over to help you up.
Oh, no.
Trainer not coming over with a towel to wipe up the blood.
No. Looked at me with my little number 11 jersey in the practice background, said, next guy in.
Hey, that blood stain's probably still on the floor of Barnhill, too.
It probably is.
Before we move on to your post-playing career, you have one of the funniest stories that you have told about during a game, and Coach Sutton is calling, need you. Where's Dykes? Where's Dykes? We need him. And this game's going on. And you hit coach, you jump to action.
Yeah.
This isn't really needed.
This isn't a minute 30 to go and we're up 20. Hey, Dykes, get up here. This is early in the second half on the road and a 2-point game. And Ricky Norton goes up in the corner to shoot a shot and comes down and rolls his ankle, and he's hobbling around out there. And I quickly hear, because at that point, our backup point guard didn't make the trip. That's a whole nother hour podcast. And so as the third string point guard, Pat, I'm thinking, I'm going to go in. I'm going to go in. So I hear Dykes, get up here. So I pull that warm up off and go up and sit down by Coach Sutton like you always had to do before he went in the game. And he didn't say a word to me, he just sat there. And then the next time out, he stands up, and as he stands up, he turns to me and he says, and so I'm watching Norton, he's still playing, but he's hobbling. And Coach stands up and he says, what size shoe do you wear? And I said, 11. He said, well, take off your left shoe and give it to Ricky Norton because his left sneaker blew out and he needs yours to finish the game. So I didn't get in, but my shoe got in. Oh, and you know what? Hey, you know your role. You accept your role, you go back down to the end of the bench, one shoe on, one shoe off, you wave a towel, you hope you beat the Aggies, and you get out of there.
That is the greatest. I mean, think of everything in that story. The quick thinking of a coach, resourcefulness of a coach, the understanding of a player, the unselfishness of a player. But in all seriousness, like, I want to, because I don't think a lot of people have heard about your playing. I mean, you were a baller, obviously. What was your scouting report? What because you could play. I mean, we all know you're a high level college basketball player.
Yeah, I was not a great college basketball player. I was a good high school player that wanted to get into coaching and took advantage of Coach Sutton allowing me to come over there and be a part of the program. And I literally had so much pride in putting on that uniform right there. So much pride. It was such a big deal in this state and still is to this day. But back then it was bigger than life to kids in this state that wanted to be a Razorback. So when I got the opportunity to put that practice jersey on or a game jersey on, I just never let a day go by that I didn't do everything I could to help our team get better. I wasn't helping in the game, but in practice, I fought Darrell Walker and Alvin Robertson and Ricky Norton with all that I had. And I remember them talking about that, how that helped them become a better player. I tried to win every wind sprint. I did everything that I possibly could, just to think that maybe I had a little bit of impact on Razorback basketball.
Sure.
And I'm so appreciative for Coach Sutton giving me the opportunity. He then got me right into coaching after I graduated. I was a graduate assistant for him, then went into Kentucky, Oklahoma State. That's how I got in the NBA. And that's why I'm talking with you right now, because that all those days of grinding through a Razorback career ultimately set me up to where I am now in my life. So that was great memories, man. Great.
Yeah.
I think I started 3 times in my career. Senior night, and I started twice. We went to a foreign tour before my senior year in Japan, played 6 games in Japan over 10 days.
Awesome.
And Alvin Robertson had to leave to go get ready for the Olympic trials. So I got to start 2 games. We won them both. So I'm 3-0 as a starter. Games that I appeared as a Razorback, I think we are 29-0. So I topped that.
How many people can say you're 2-0 around the world, like outside of the United States? I don't think any Razorback can say 2-0.
Yeah, as a starter.
Now, I guess they go on
in Japan. Well, we might need to narrow it down to in Japan.
That particular city, that country, Tokyo, Japan. That's it.
In June.
After, let me get this right now. So you had a few coaching stops, which I think are real interesting. Arkansas, you mentioned. Appalachian State, Kentucky, obviously we know a coach. Arkansas State,
Arkansas Little Rock,
Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And was Houston not there when you were there? Was that?
Houston was not there when I was at Oklahoma State. No.
I know you're good friends with him. So
yeah.
What just coaching in general, the pros and cons of the biz. I mean, you've been on all sides, up, down, all levels, and what are the pros and cons of the life of a basketball coach?
Yeah, it totally consumes you. You know, I was fortunate. Most of my coaching days is when I wasn't married yet. I was single, so the long and we had long hours now with Coach Sutton. Woo, we had long hours, a lot of work, a lot of film, and that just it became your lifestyle. It wasn't your job. It was, unfortunately, who you were. And I've learned how to make sure you flip that as I've gotten older. Your job should be what you do. It should never become who you are. And I think a lot of us get tripped up by that. But that coaching at that high level, I got introduced to real pressure as an assistant at Kentucky. I was a graduate assistant at Arkansas, had a lot of responsibility there. But when I went to Kentucky and had coaching duties and drawing up plays and timeout duties, whew, that was some real stuff, man. On national TV at 25 years of age.
You got to come through.
Real time.
Everybody's looking for you for answers.
Yeah. So, but, you know, all that shaped me who I am. I think I still call the game of basketball on the air through the eyes of how I learned it through Coach Sutton. A lot of it, you know, I still see the things that I value on the air. I think I learned from him. But it's such a hard, stressful, pressure consuming job. And you and I know it, man, from the guys that we're around right now. And it's a real fight, I think, for those guys. And it was for me even to keep it in perspective and keep a good life balance. It's a real challenge.
I know you got 2 games to call this weekend, our final weekend SEC basketball. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to ask you about a few more minutes here. Just the current Hogs, Coach Musselman in his second season has been able to really build his foundation of what he wants to do. You were able to call a lot of their games last year, some this year. Haven't been, unfortunately, no practices this year. I'm assuming last year. What when your first discussions with Coach Muss, what was it that stood out to you that you felt this guy could have a chance?
Yeah, I first met him at the Final Four 3 days before he got hired at Arkansas. I
Mm.
stepped on the elevator, and Coach Muss and his wife were on the elevator, and I said, "Coach, I'm Jimmy Dykes, work for ESPN. Your name's pretty hot right now in Fayetteville." And the door's shut, and we hit the pause button, so the elevator's not moving. His wife hit the pause button, and she said, "Whoa, hold up! You live in Fayetteville? Tell me about Fayetteville. It's a great place to raise a family." I was all in, obviously, because working for ESPN, I can live anywhere I want. I choose to live right here in Fayetteville. So, but the energy that those two brought to me the first time I met him was like, whoa, I can see why this guy has been successful. And then being around him for the first few times I've ever watched him in practice, Pat, he is as good as we have in the game at the details of the scouting report, keeping it simple, like we talked about early, so his guys can grasp it. And I've had coaches in the SEC tell me that they think Arkansas brings the scouting report into the game as well as anyone in this league. And I am completely in agreement with that. They are so good at the 4 or 5 things that we have to do in this game, and they do it. And I look at that program right now, the Hall of Fame coaches that we've had, from Eddie Sutton to Nolan Richardson, and Mike Anderson was terrific, and now Coach Muss. Man, that Arkansas basketball program's been blessed with some really, really high-level coaches, and Coach Muss is one of them. I'm a huge believer in their team right now. I was on a radio show here locally yesterday, asked me about where can Arkansas end up. I said they can end up in that Elite Eight game. Are they as good? Are they as good right now as Baylor, Gonzaga, Michigan, Illinois, Iowa? Probably not.
Right.
Everybody else, yes, absolutely.
It's pretty amazing too how he's done it, and the transfer. Listen, he came along and had to get those Arkansas kids. Of course, Moses Moody, Devo Davis, KK Robinson, Jalen Williams, who is fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and I might be missing one. His approach is, would you call it unique? Number one, with the transfers, and how do you see the future of college basketball and transfers?
Yeah, I think it is unique, and I think he's been out in front of it. That's how he did it at Nevada, and he has a great analysis in terms of what do I look for in a transfer. That staff spends a lot of time on the phone with opposing coaches that played against Jalen Tate, JD Note, whoever. Like, you can get you get real answers when you talk to the opposing coach about what you see in this kid when you played against. So I think they have that transfer thing really dialed in and figured out at a very high level. And he's made Arkansas basketball cool with kids in this state of Arkansas. That's how he's built his roster. But to take all those pieces, Pat, and blend them together like he's had, like, they're the most selfless team I think we have in the SEC. They have one future pro in Moses Moody, and then a bunch of really good college players, but they all play so connected and so together. But that doesn't just happen. Right. That's Coach Muss and his staff making sure that happens. So I think the transfer is going to really ignite college basketball. This could be a crazy off season, especially like I anticipate the one-time transfer rule going into place where you don't have to sit. You will see guys being recruited right off of someone's campus. It already happened. You and I know that. But it will just escalate when that one-time transfer rule goes in. So now, as a head coach, to answer your question, not only are you recruiting high school players and you have your eyes on the transfer portal, who's going to be available, you have to actively keep recruiting your own guys, your own team, or they'll get recruited right out from underneath you.
Right. It is interesting, and it's sort of happened quickly. A few years back, you had a lot of people, some coaches, complaining about transfer. And the thing that I don't like is when people observing will blame a player. And I've always said, well, if you don't like the transfers in the transfer rules, there's only one way to stop it. tell the coaches to stop recruiting a kid that's on another school. If you say I am not taking transfers, it'll stop. But embracing it and understanding how valuable it is, and sometimes giving a kid a second shot, it works out, and it certainly worked out in favor for Coach Muss. All right, last question for you, because I know you're in the middle of prepping for a couple of games. This is for me. I'm trying to get in your mind here, right? I'm trying to steal some of your secrets.
That's not easy to do. Get inside this.
Your wife's been trying for many years, I'm sure. What's your approach? Like when you see a game you got scheduled, what do you do for your prep? Like the steps that you go up until tip?
Yeah, well, I think for most of us, the first thing I do is try to watch their last 2 games. Sometimes I watch it with the sound up. Sometimes I watch it with the sound down. Sometimes I just want to get my own thoughts on this team and make sure that I understand their concepts, how they like to play, what their strengths are, those kind of things. Then I spend time on the phone with either the head coach. A lot of times it's an assistant coach that has more time to really, dig into it with you. If I can get the coach on the phone that has the scout, that's a great value for me. In 5 minutes, if I have an Arkansas Kentucky game, if I can talk to the assistant coach of Kentucky that has the scout on Arkansas, man, that's worth gold to me. And then it's, for you and I, that we have to have a national view on stuff. I spend a lot of my day just making sure I'm on top of the big storylines across college basketball as a whole, because our game's on ESPN, we're calling our game, but we're also doing promos of Iowa and Illinois on Thursday night. I can't just sit there and not have a comment about it, and I have to have something to say about those games. So, as you know, people don't realize that it's just constant preparation, constant film study on the phone, and then taking all that information and simplifying it for me, so I'm not overwhelmed with information before the game ever starts. Right. Because my mind has to be clear and what's going on in this game. I can anticipate what might happen, but I've got to make sure I'm very clear on what's happening in this particular game once we toss it up.
Well, Coach, you're an inspiration. I appreciate you. I love the fact, is that your wife, Tiffany's pom-pom background too?
Yeah, right there.
Razorback cheerleader. All right. Keeping in the family. Kennedy, I'm sure is on her way to being a Razorback, which is awesome. Your daughter.
She wants to go in the SEC. So, and she has high aspirations.
She's a runner, right?
Yeah, in her mind right now, she either wants to run track or be a cheerleader in the SEC. So we're open to the best recruiting weekend we can have.
Recruitment up.
All expenses paid. We'll come see you.
Well, that was cool. I remember last year you talking about how she came on road trips with you to check out all the SEC schools.
She went to the LSU Auburn game last year. I think this game went to overtime, sat in the student section, and she walked out of that building saying, "I'm going to be an Auburn Tiger." And then 2 weeks later, she was in Lexington with me, and she got to meet the cheerleading coach at Kentucky. She's like, "Dad, I want to be a Kentucky Wildcat." Then you go in the room, she got an Arkansas sweatshirt that she's wearing. Who knows?
Who knows? It'll all pan out. I appreciate you. I know you're busy. Thank you very much. You're an inspiration. You do it the right way. And that's why you have so many blessings. A charmed life you live, my friend. A charmed life.
Pat, you're the best. I really appreciate you having me on. You know how much I think of you and how much I value your friendship. And your book's heading your way, man.
Yes, that's my man. All right.
Hey, there's not a lot of pictures in it, Pat. I'm sorry.
When do you listen? The pop-up book. Let me know when that one comes out in the audio book. That's what I need. All right. Love you, my man.
You too, buddy.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Pat. You're the best.
That's been another episode of 30 Minutes of Hell on the Field of 68 Network with the coach, Jimmy Dykes. I'm Pat Bradley.